Wednesday. I am your host, George Miller. I'm here almost every Wednesday to talk about emotional intelligence in the workplace, to help people develop in their careers. And I invite anybody who's listening in to participate at whatever level you want. You can type your questions into the comment section. You can join here directly on Zoom. I love it when you do that and I get to talk to you one-to-one. You can, watch the recording, come back later, ask questions. You can also set up a one-to-one time with me. I meet with people often just for a few minutes to see if, first of all, if we're a good fit for coaching, sometimes just to affirm a direction that somebody's already on. They're like, I want to have this conversation with my boss or with a business partner, and I just need some help sorting it out so that I really know that I'm saying what I want to say. That kind of thing, I love helping people with. You can grab a time on my calendar if you want to connect with me that way, and we can discuss if a ongoing coaching relationship makes sense. So that's available. But for the next half an hour, 40 minutes, I am here to talk about emotional intelligence in the workplace and, how it helps in ways that you might not think it does at first. So how does emotional intelligence actually strengthen goal setting and planning? So, because that seems so logistical. So like, I just need to make a plan and then that's the logical part of my brain and not so much the emotional part of my being. And so what is the connection point between goal setting, planning, and emotional in awareness? So I can have a wonderful plan, but as anybody who makes a plan knows, things don't go according to plans. So if I get sidetracked, if I allow myself to be sidetracked, it's important to kind of know what's going on inside of me. And if I'm unwilling to be present with the feelings that come up when I'm seeing my plan through, there's no way that I'm going to see my plan through. I will give up. Human beings, we don't have great willpower. It takes a lot of energy to do something different. And presumably, if I'm, have an initiative at work or I'm starting my own company or whatever it is, I'm going to be stepping into new territory and I'm going to need to learn new skills. And that's going to be challenging. It's going to disrupt my system, disrupt how I feel about stuff. So if I'm unwilling to be present with my emotions, I'm going to be more inflexible and more brittle. You can think about it like that. It's like, as a boxer, anybody who is in fighting learns these days how important it is to be able to relax. Oh yeah, I watch the UFC stuff and see Joe Rogan says, oh yeah, no, he looks relaxed. So that is so important in all of life. Emotional agility, the ability to change as new problems arise. So even in planning, I will revert to things that I already know how to do and put that into the plan if I'm unwilling to really be with the discomfort of what so. So many people who begin coaching with me have an idea of what they think they want. And as we get into coaching, they start finding, wait a minute, I already have a lot of the things that I want. I just didn't realize I wanted them. And what I thought I wanted doesn't actually bring me more satisfaction. It was just sort of what I thought I was supposed to want. So being more in touch with your feelings gives you really important data about who you are, what your gifts are, where you can learn and grow, what you can lean into. And that helps with the planning. So you know, if I set an ambitious goal, I might be excited about it for a little bit. But as I lean into achieving that, that excitement is going to turn into things like dread, um, you know, hurt feelings when, you know, people don't get back to me, this kind of thing. And so if I'm going to see a plan through, it's going to require me to be more emotionally resilient. And so emotional intelligence is incredibly important in this process. So that's the overall kind of topic of how emotional intelligence ties into planning and goal setting. There's a variety of ways, but I would love to hear from anybody who's joining in. Any questions that you have, any thoughts, concerns, and reminder, you don't have to ask a question that has anything to do with this topic. You could ask about your dynamic with your boss or your team, questions about interviewing resumes. I spoke with somebody yesterday who was like, you know, I'm not getting the results that I want in my interviews. I make it to the final interview and then nobody, I always get some message back like, oh, we're going with a different candidate, somebody with a little more experience, that kind of thing. And so what we started working on was, oh, okay, so you're just putting out ways that you fit the job. They're asking you questions and you're responding saying, here's my experience, I've done this, and they're not getting to see how you really engage with them in person. And so you actually, when interviewing, want to ask more questions. You want them to get a sense of how you work right then and there. And so you're not just responding to questions, because they might have already written you off halfway through the interview and you might not know it. In fact, one thing they said was like, you know, for one of the interviews, the hiring manager came in 5 minutes late, said, okay, I only have this much longer. And they proceeded to just go through the plan that they had of delivering their presentation. And I pointed out that they could have actually used that. They could have named, hey, obviously we're not going to get all the way through my presentation given the limited amount of time. I'm thinking that, you know, this is already that I forget how I worded it there, but to actually name that relationally with the hiring manager and say, well, I'm gonna be real targeted with you then. I'm not gonna show my full presentation. I'm gonna bottom line it more, and I'm gonna ask you more questions to make sure that you're really getting the value that I bring here. I would have done something like that, you know, actually used the mistake or the challenge, the curveball thrown. You know, who knows? Maybe that's a strategy that hiring manager does, is like, you know, I'm going to come in and change things up and just see how this person responds to me. I don't know. So that's some things that you can be thinking about is, you know, you have a plan of how you're going to interview, what you're going to say. How does emotional intelligence fit into your plan? How are you going to be increasingly self-aware? I got a question coming in here. Navigating uncertainty requires us to confront our fears. How can we transform that into growth? Okay, so yes, it does. It requires us to be with fear. So how do we transform fear into growth? Help me make, so one of the things when you type a question in, if I'm going to, you know, go on what I think you're asking, and if I'm responding and you're like, oh no, George, I meant more like this, just let me know. Just type it into the comment section and keep me on track with what you're wanting from this. So navigating uncertainty requires us to confront our fears. How can we transform that into growth? So transformation If I think about transformation, what that really means, I mean, it's a buzzword that's thrown around like transformational leadership, but what does it even mean? To become something different, to transform, like the Transformers, you know, it's like they're cars, but then they turn into like robot monsters that can kick butt. And so it's it's a significant change. And if I'm going to confront fears and be with myself in uncertain times, it's likely that if I allow myself that discomfort, that I may then transform. You know, especially if I have an intention of, I want to become a better communicator. You know, as a artist, musician, I could communicate feelings and ideas that way, you know, from the safety of a stage or from the safety of a piece of art on a wall or whatever. Like, that's one way. But for me to communicate here and now with people from many different walks of life, I would consider that a personal transformation. So I'm not now, it's not like I gave up my ability to create art and music. I'm just expanding, I'm just adding to my behaviors. And I would say that that is a transformation. And lots of hard work, lots of learning from things, writing a capstone paper for my master's degree. I mean, that was a pain in the butt. It was a challenge. And just going through that process, I do believe, helped transform me. But it's I want to make the point that transformation is bigger than just like a quick change. It's I think it's bigger than just a changed habit. It's like a different way of being in the world, of seeing the world. You know, I was an outsider. I chose to live on the fringes of society and to have as little responsibility. I'm ashamed to say it. I used to not even vote, you know, like I was like, oh, whatever. Like I'm checking out from the system and from the community that I live in. So that was a way that I was. And now that I'm like way more engaged and I do what I can to help shift the community in ways that I think is important, it's like, it's a very deep change. So I think that's a great question of, you know, in times of uncertainty, being with fear, and how can we transform that into growth? I think if you really confront your fears, you will find yourself transforming. So fear often shows up when I'm about to step into something that requires a new level of identity, like leading a team through a pivot or launching something unproven. Ah, yes. Okay, great. Thank you for the addition there. So leaning into the fear and paying attention to the fear. So I do this with the ice water training stuff in the winter, where I ask people, you know, what are you afraid of going into the water? Like, just genuinely, what comes up? What are the fears? And I loved it when one person said, I'm afraid of getting frostbite. I was like, well, that's a totally valid fear. That's a good fear to have. And so, okay, what are we going to do to mitigate that? And so if you are stepping into a new level of leadership, like leading a team through a pivot or launching something that's unproven, you want to pay attention to your fears, because your fears are giving you good information. You might say, you know what, I'm afraid that I'm not going to present this clearly, this, given that I have a lot of unknowns here. So you may then say, oh, well, I'm going to lean into that fear and I'm going to practice. I'm going to turn on the video and record myself talking this through. And I'm going to watch back, and I'm going to be with that discomfort of watching and hearing myself and really allowing myself to assess, oh, this is how other people hear and see me. Okay, what can I do? Oh, the way that I said, oh, that's me avoiding fear in the moment. that's me trying to buy myself some time, and it doesn't sound good to the audience. Oh, I don't like looking at it, but okay, I'm glad that I did. I'm now going to replace the ums with slowing down some and taking a breath, being more aware of myself and the fears that I'm feeling in the moment. I hope that this is kind of landing for you as I'm talking about this. So it's not about getting rid of fear. It's about being present with the fear, using the fear as a guide. There's all these taglines of things about like overcoming fear. Well, you once I know how to do something and I'm successful with it, then I'm not afraid of doing it anymore. But it's not like I got rid of the fear. It's like I just don't have, my fears are now different. I'm now afraid of the next step. So let me know if I'm on track with you. Does that help? How do you help? Okay, good. So I'm on track. How do you help leaders not just manage fear, but build emotional agility to work with it in real time? Okay, so I'm now getting a picture of you more, and I'm imagining that you are leading a team of leaders who are going to need to face their fears more in some of the changes that are coming up. And so, how do you help leaders not just manage fear, but build emotional agility to work with it in real time? So if you're leading them, the way you're going to do this is by demonstrating it to them and telling them that you're doing it. So I'm going to try this on right now. So I just got a question. I've gotten 3 questions, and I feel afraid right now because I've got things like, am I answering this question well? Am I really on point here? So what I did then was I said, let me know if I'm on track with you. Let me know if what I'm saying is making sense and if we're together in this communication. I could have just taken your first question and talked about it for a while and said to myself, like, okay, good. Am I sounding smart? Does that da 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 da? There's some of that going on, but I paid attention to my fear and I leaned into it and I checked it out again with you. And I said, tell me if I'm on track. So that's a way right now that I am using my fear to communicate better with you. So you can do that same kind of thing with your team. Say, okay, team, like, here's my concerns right now. And I'm afraid that, I'm not being understood this way, or that these are the concerns, but I want to make sure that these are actually your concerns. So you're demonstrating in the moment how you stay in touch with your fears and communicate effectively. And then you underline that you're doing that. And you say, this is how I'm being with you right now. Doesn't have to look exactly this way, but this is the basic thing that I want from each of you. Is I want you to be taking meaningful risks in your conversations with other people so that you're deepening the relationships, getting better data, whatever it is that your team needs to do. Another thing that you can do to build emotional agility in real time, there's one thing that I do that works so freaking well. So I have a lot of clients who like to work with me one-on-one. We do great stuff. There's some educational things in there, and I'm able to really hone in with people and help them identify a fear and how to step into being present with that fear in a new way for themselves. And it usually has to do with how they're going to communicate to a boss, partner, whatever. And say, oh yeah, I am uncomfortable saying that, but I can say it. And I can see how that's probably going to make a positive difference. So I love doing that. But something that works really well and it's more uncomfortable, but it works really well, is emotional exposure groups, where a group of people has agreed to behave in new ways and to share feelings more with each other. And in that environment, it's like an emotional intelligence gym. Like, you just get so much learning from vicariously, like by watching people, and then also by testing out new skills. So in this one group I've got going, one person took on the assignment to interrupt. It's not, they're not always going to interrupt in work meetings, but what they found by practicing the skill of interrupting is that they actually just spoke up more in meetings then. It's like, oh yeah, I started to be aware of the pauses where I could insert myself where I didn't even see it as a possibility before. So this kind of thing is the best answer I have for your question of how do you help leaders not just manage fear, but build emotional agility to work with it in real time, is exposure, is to have your team participate in some kind of emotional exposure coaching. That sometimes can look, I've done this with leadership teams where I come in for a lunch and learn, and we just run through this. I'm basically doing group coaching, so a little bit of educating, but then in like real time, like working through challenges and getting everybody's buy-in to, like, I'll have people share with each other right there, like not later, but like right in that moment. Okay, we're going to practice these skills now. So there's that. And you as a leader, if you're leading a team that way, you could set that up. That could be, if you've got a weekly meeting, you could say, all right, here's the research on emotional expression and how incredibly important it is. And so we're going to play around with that. Here's some exercises we're going to do. I've worked with people who realized that they would get way more out of a half an hour meeting if they spent the first 5 minutes talking about whatever it is they did the past weekend, because it gave people more context for who they're talking to. It created a sense of connection. So any dialogue that came after that worked better. Was it a little uncomfortable for people? Yeah, but as you bring that into your teams, you'll start to see what works and what doesn't work. So let me know if that's helpful. I hope that's just some good practical coaching. And I would love to talk further with you, by the way, one-to-one, if you are interested in developing this part of yourself and your team more. You can always jump onto my calendar, set up a 15-20 minute time with me, and we can look at it further. So yeah, let me know if if I'm answering your question there. And I'm going to do a quick room reset for anybody who's joining in. This is Career Lab Wednesday. I'm here almost every Wednesday, and I love taking questions about how to improve in your career, whether it's resume, interviewing, team building, relationship with boss, relationship with clients, starting your own company. I got a lot of entrepreneurs right now. And how emotional intelligence, basically communication skills, play into this, and how to really develop your communication skills. And so any questions, I'll tie it back to communication. But you can ask anything that's career related. Even, the things about your resume. Resumes are amazing because it requires you to really think through your gifts, really think through who you are. And if you just use, AI or whatever to build it, you're not going to get the value from it that you could. So any questions career related are fair game. And I'm going to circle back to some of the questions I got earlier and recap on those. Again, overall talking about how EQ, emotional intelligence, strengthens goal setting and planning. So no matter how perfect my plan is, there's going to be unknowns. There's going to be challenges that come up. I mean, like, think about this with, military. Like, obviously, when the US military goes into Afghanistan or wherever, like, they're going to have a plan, and they're going to have a very well thought out plan. There's a lot of reason to do that. There's a lot of money behind it. And yet, once they're in action, nothing, well, not nothing, but a lot of things don't go the way the plan went. And so being able to recognize that things are not going the way I planned is really important. If I'm unwilling to recognize that, I could see my plan through perfectly, and the end result is going to suck. So, that being said, though, it's still really important to plan. If I don't plan, then it's like I'm not even getting the sketch out there. Then I will just kind of make the same mistakes again and again, and I won't really be able to measure my progress. I won't be able to measure to see if I am getting more of what I want. So having a plan is incredibly important. Everybody should do it. You should have your 3-year plan, your 5-year plan, your 10-year plan, etc. And be checking in and seeing, okay, I said I was going to save this much money by this point. How did I do on that? Okay, I said I was going to have this many clients by that point. How did I do on that? I said I was going to do this many posts, but that's really important. And yet, you're going to be more successful with your plan when you allow yourself to be with the feelings, and you will be able to get more out of your plan when you allow yourself to be present with your feelings. All right, so we're coming up on half hour here, and I'd love to take any more questions. You can type them into the comment section. I'll do my best to answer them. Let me know if there's anything that you're wanting today, or as I may sign off soon. I'll circle back and talk about some of these questions here for a little bit in closing. And starting with, navigating uncertainty requires us to confront our fears. Absolutely. I think about the history of our country, coming across a bunch of Europeans coming across an ocean, going into the unknown. And yet it was like, well, it's better over there than what's going on over here. So there's more possibility. There's a chance that I might be able to have my own farm, my own business, my own something where I might be able to develop myself and not just be paying landlords for the rest of my life, and maybe be able to set my kids up so that they can do more of what they want to do. So that's like built into us, is to lean into our fears, to confront this kind of thing. So then how do we transform that into growth? That's a huge question. I mean, there's a lot that goes into transforming it into growth. If I don't have the intention to grow and develop, then, I might not transform. I might not be willing to pay that price. And then, fear shows up when I'm about ready to step into something that requires a new level of identity, like leading a team through a pivot or launching something unproven. Absolutely. And that fear if you're launching something that's unproven, you want to talk about that. You want to say, here's my concerns. I see that here's the things that are unproven about this product, and here are the consequences of that. This whole thing might not work, and so we need to be really aware of what's working and what's not working. We have to pay attention to our fears. So I need each of you, you're talking to your team, I need each of you to alert me right away. If something's not working, then I don't want anybody hoping that things are going to work out. I want you to talk about it now. That's a great way of using fear. So often people avoid an uncomfortable conversation, and then the thing just gets worse and worse and worse. And so if we are trained and all of us are trained to some degree to avoid talking about uncomfortable things, to bring up things that, upset the current system. Like, that's just part of what it means to be a human. So to allow myself to be with the fear, then I can say, well, if I don't say anything, I could see it getting a lot worse. If I do say something, I might be met with resistance. Some people might not like me. And you know what? When I really look at it, I'm willing to pay that price. So I hope that that's helpful in helping you think through how you can use fear in your interactions, how you can use being in touch with your fear as a leader to help your team develop. All right, everybody. Well, thank you for joining in today. I'm going to be logging off now. I will be back next week. I am looking forward to talking more about emotional intelligence and how important this is as the AI revolution is happening. And it brings me great joy and security. So joy coming from the security, as there's so many jobs that are in jeopardy. It's being compared to in manufacturing, that when you have robots come in and able to assemble things in ways that are safer than humans could do it, it took jobs away from people. And now we've got AI, and AI can take jobs away from people around writing, content creation, this kind of thing. Marketing is huge. And so what I'm hearing more and more about is that emotional intelligence, communication skills, human skills, like things that only humans can do, is going to become more and more important. Creativity, and even the friction in relationships, the friction in conversations, the mistakes that are made, and working through that stuff, the stuff that's very human is going to get more and more important. For artists, it's the imperfections in the creation that are going to, I believe, become more and more interesting. And I think this has already been the case with art and music. I don't care about a perfect thing. I so many times it's the mistakes and the kind of avenue that goes off. I mean, jazz is like just a constant mistake happening that somehow holds itself together. So these things, these very human things, I think are going to become increasingly important. And the ability to be with discomfort, the ability to be agile, all of this requires me to be more present with what I'm feeling. If I'm going to be flexible, if I'm going to take feedback in that's uncomfortable, if I'm going to learn new things, I'm going to have to be present with my feelings. I'm going to have to allow myself to develop, to transform. And transformation comes with a price of pain, because learning new things just hurts as an adult. Jack Mesereau. Childhood was formation, adulthood is transformation. Learning as an adult requires discomfort at the very least. So these soft skills, communication skills, are getting increasingly important. And so I look forward to sharing more about that and inviting each and every one of you to be more in touch with your foundation, your feelings, your emotions, to be more in touch with your humanity. All right, till next.